Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So here I got a fun and extra episode for you guys this evening because it seems like in 2024 the Sega Saturn cannot stop winning. We keep getting new Sega Saturn experiences and this one is going to definitely be one of my favorites because I absolutely love the entire Bomberman franchise and I've owned Saturn Bomberman Fight on my Sega Saturn for almost 18 years now. Interestingly enough, I went on vacation to Costa Rica, bought it before I left, came home, and it was in my mailbox and I've been playing it ever since. But now there is an English translation, at least partially, that you can play today, understanding a hell of a lot more of the actual story of Bomberman Fight. And while this game is nothing like Saturn Bomberman, it is one of my favorite Bomberman games of all time, and I'm so glad to actually be able to understand what is going on right now. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But 3 of the characters have their full storylines translated at this point in time. Every single character in this game has their own unique story, and you can find out what 3 of them are today. Now it's going to be in Japanese voiceover, and the developers have mentioned they're not changing that whatsoever, and I think that is a very good thing because the voice acting in this game is hilariously fun. It has that classic Japanese Bomberman sound. If you've never played Bomberman Fight before, I can't recommend it enough. It is a fun isometric Bomberman. You have a battle mode, of course, because it is a Bomberman game, but you get an awesome 1 versus 1 storyline where you have to go through every single level, defeating other characters in the game so you can move on to your unique ending. Kind of has a fighting game format except in the Bomberman universe, and I'm 100% there for it. It's cute, it's colorful, it's got an awesome soundtrack because you know it's Bomberman, and now we're getting so much more of the actual English language, being able to better understand what the hell is actually going on. Because I will say now that I've gotten some of the English story, I absolutely love this game even more because now the charm's coming across in this story as well. But this, just like pretty much any other Bomberman game, is going to be easy to pick up and play, but so incredibly difficult to master. On normal difficulty, when you get to later stages, the AI on your opponent is going to be very intelligent. Never cheap, but it's going to keep you on your toes and it's going to make you think. And then with all the associated power-ups you can get used against you and against your opponent, you're going to just be absolutely running around the board in a frantic action battle to try to beat whatever's in front of you. And I feel like a lot of you have never played this game before, so leave me a comment down below and tell me if you knew Bomberman Fight existed and if you've checked it out. And again, if you haven't played this, definitely run, don't walk, and do it. I'm playing this on MiSTer FPGA today on the Sega Saturn Work in Progress core, but it'll work on a real Saturn as well as Mednafen, so however you play, you definitely want to check it out because it used to be like this in Japanese. You'd have no idea what's going on in the story, but now we have full English for those 3 characters, and I did read on Saturn Extreme, this project is going to continue until all of the character stories and all of the different modes have a full English translation. And I will say the actual translation is quite good. It brings over the sense of charm and humor of Bomberman Fight without changing so many things that the context is not there. It's definitely a 10 out of 10 on the actual literal translation front as well as the conversational transaction front. But you'll see here as this match gets going on, there's so many bombs on screen, so many different power-ups, and so many different cards that can just completely screw you over. I had all of my controls inverted there, so up was down, left was right, and it makes you think fast on your feet and pivot. And trust me, when you get another player in this game and you start playing as a multiplayer experience, it becomes absolutely hilarious. It is frantic, fast-paced action. You're going to be screaming and yelling at your opponent the entire time you're playing, and that's all we really want out of a Bomberman game. And I will say the rudimentary polygon characters have so much charm in them, and all of these isometric stages look so good in the world of Bomberman. It's completely different visually and gameplay wise than you're used to on Saturn Bomberman, but don't let that put you off on playing Bomberman Fight. This is the hidden gem of the Bomberman series in my opinion, unless you play Bomberman Wars, which is more of a tactical RPG in the Bomberman universe, which also has some English in it as well, and maybe I'll do a video on that at some point in time. But getting Saturn Bomberman Fight here in English at the start is just so much fun. We've had so much action on the Sega Saturn front in 2024, and it is only the beginning of January. That is absolutely wild and insane. But go ahead and have some voice sample. I love the voice acting. Read the English and see how the English dialogue marries to the Japanese voice acting because it is quite good, and I'll be right back.
やっぱりあんたも来てたのね。あんたには悪いけど優勝は私のものよ。で、ちょっとよかった。いや、何言ってるのよ。私と戦うってことは言って てくれるな。あ、いや、何を本気に。レディーファイト。
I absolutely love the English text along with the Japanese voice acting, and I think that's such a smart decision of the developers of this translation to leave it as is. There's so much charm and character in all of the voice actors' voices and their intonation on how they deliver the lines. I think even if they had professional voice actors dub those lines, you would lose a little bit of that Japanese charm moving forward. So I think it is a really good design decision to keep it in Japanese, because as long as we can read it in English, it doesn't really matter what language is spoken. But as we move on further in the game, again, this is just absolutely why I love Bomberman so much. It is instantaneously recognizable and easy to play, but it can be infuriatingly hard in a fun way to actually get further in the game. Every single level is a challenge, there's a strategy, there's elevation changes here, and that's not something you used to get with a pure 2D Bomberman game. If you play battle mode on Saturn Bomberman, you're still on that 2D grid, where here you actually have that polygonal elevation and it just works. Now there are more areas of the game that are translated. If you go down to options and then into player info, you get all of this information on all of the different characters and their stats within the game. Before, if you had the Japanese version, you really wouldn't know what these were unless you looked them up. So you can pick a character that works for you. Just be aware, like I said, only 3 characters right now actually have their storylines translated. I know that more is coming and I can't wait to see it. But let's move on to another character that has some translation. I do hope Pui Pui the monkey there gets one soon, because I'm really curious what his story is. But this is just, again, such an incredible game and such an incredible project. I'm so glad to see a lot of these translations and patches are coming over to Sega Saturn in 2024, because we had the Symphony of the Night Ultimate 1.0 patch bringing English translations and the 4MB RAM expansion together, and we have the Konami X-Men Arcade coming as well. I did a video on that. I will show that to you soon. I'm just doing these in reverse order. And now we have Bomberman Fight with a partial English translation, and it is just so much fun to see. But I'm going to give you a sound sample of the soundtrack, because just like Saturn Bomberman, this game has what I think is a 10 out of 10 soundtrack. Hudson Soft always made incredible Bomberman music, and this is no different. So go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back. It's just a fun soundtrack predicated with those bombs exploding, and maybe the bomb explosion noises are a little bit louder versus the soundtrack, but honestly it's not too bad here. But again, I just can't get over how much fun it is to be able to read the English storylines for some characters, and I can't recommend again enough that you actually check this game out. It seems like barely anyone ever mentions Bomberman Fight, so I'm glad to see someone actually wanted to translate this over, because pretty much 99 out of 100 times if you hear about Bomberman on the Sega Saturn, you're going to be talking about Saturn Bomberman, and while I do consider that the best pure Bomberman game of all time, Bomberman Fight is a very close second as far as games that I love. And you'll see here we do get some more story, and every single character has a personality to it, and that personality has come over so well in the translation. I'm glad that the translators basically took what was there and pivoted to conversational English without seeming to put too much of their own touch on the translation. Sometimes you watch a translation or you play it and you can tell that they're changing what is said to try to more modernize it or make it make sense for the audience that they're working for. This here is very conversational. You 100% get the personality of each character you're reading about, but it works in the context of not changing things too much, and that's my favorite way to do a translation. But the last stage here that I'm going to show you guys, I'm just trying to sell this one more time. The graphics are incredible, all of the gameplay is so much fun, and there's so many wild power-ups that you do not see in pretty much any other Bomberman game outside of Bomberman Fight. This is the type of game you bring it out on your next party night, you let people play it, you play with your friends, and I can almost guarantee you are going to have fun. There's nothing about this game I would change. I would just leave it as is with English, and that's what it seems to be like what we're getting. And there's definitely some other Bomberman games out there that could use translations, so hopefully we see a start of a pattern here. And hopefully January for Sega Saturn is the start of a pattern for the entire year, because I can't wait to see what else comes next to Saturn. It's been one of my favorite 2D consoles of all time. I absolutely cannot get enough Saturn, and it's so much fun to see all these new fan projects. And again, you can play it on MiSTer FPGA, you can play it on real Saturn hardware, and you can play it on Mednafen, so you have a lot of different options to check this out. The only option you don't have is to not do it if you enjoy Saturn and Bomberman, because if you miss out on this, you're totally missing out on one of my favorite deep cut hidden gem Bomberman games of all time. But short of that, next time something cool happens in the Saturn gaming space, I will definitely do a video on it. I've been enjoying doing some of these more modern news videos on retro stuff. But we are done. Go play Bomberman. Bye bye.